This video is going to be a little bit different from my usual content, and I'm only making it because I actually got a DM from one of you, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and then an email, and lots of comments, and more DMs, all about a dress that is supposedly a copy of my armor dress. So naturally, I bought it. And this is actually not the first time that this happened. I've ordered 2 other dresses before that were clear copies, so I thought we could sit down today and do a little comparison. I've only seen pictures of it so far, and I'm really curious how close the resemblance actually is, so I guess we'll find that out together now. The dress can be bought for €61.95. It is available on different websites, but the first appearance I could find was a call to pre-order said dress in December 25, so 11 months after I posted the video, as well as pictures of my dress. First thoughts of it. It is made exactly how you would expect it. Like big stitches that are all over the place. For example, distances that are like, 4 millimeters on one side and then 7 on the other. Or like, for example, this, where from this side you think the stitches match, but then on the inside they don't really care and then they just top stitch it. A zipper that has like 0 intentions to hide. Or loose threads all over the place. Oh, this is the gloves, and I actually have no idea. I'm really surprised with how good those fit. They don't feel great. Okay, let's continue. I don't really know what that is. Oh, I think this is supposed to be those extra bits here. I have to take it off. So, okay. This feels like there is some kind of paper stuffed inside. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like cardboard. Let's have a look from the inside. So, I think from the inside it tries to look put together with all the overlooked edges. But then, for example, here, they just decided that you can just overlock over everything, including whatever is inside the shoulder pads. And I think I wouldn't mind it if it was made by a beginner sewist who started out sewing. But selling this, I think, is a bit much. It is 100% plastic, but I don't think anyone here expected anything else from this material. And I think that's the biggest reason why it looks less like armor and more like something those metal worker would wear in the facilities where they have to melt steel and where it gets very hot. I also think it looks a little bit like a beekeeper and an astronaut had a baby. So the grommets are very all over the place. They also hurt when you feel over them because they're so sharp at places, which probably is not the best. So there's paint on it, or like pen. I found a few more spots inside that were a bit dirty. I also found a few other spots that were sewn a little bit hasty maybe, or just not clean. Overall, the concept of this dress is quite similar to my dress. It is one complete dress that should resemble some kind of armor in any way. And even if I in no way say that I invented the concept of armor dresses or dresses inspired by armor or something like this, I've never really seen that take before, that someone really made a complete dress that was like one solid armor piece at once. I've seen a lot of dresses that had armor elements and then flowy dresses underneath, or corsets that were inspired by armor. So I've seen a lot of singular parts that were put together to create a dress that resembled armor, but never really the concept of I want to make a complete dress with a lot of different parts that are added together that create some kind of armor, if that makes sense. So this is like the second time I've seen that, and I think that's also why a lot of people saw it and thought about my dress, because I just think it is a very unique concept in that special part of armor dresses. But I think now that we've looked at this in a little bit more detail, we can put it on a mannequin and then actually compare the two dresses and see how much of a resemblance they actually have. So I've now put both dresses on the dress form because I think we can compare them a little bit better like that. Since we've already looked at this dress in detail, I thought we could start with the overall look and the similarities they may have. So the first thing that I think is very clear is that they both fall into the concept of making an armor-inspired dress, a full dress made from the same material. So not using some kind of chainmail or flowy material in between. It is solely one fabric covering the whole body basically and mimicking some kind of armor. Regarding this, they are definitely the same concept. In addition to that, I think there are a bit more similarities, especially when it comes to the placement of specific things. So when I made my dress, I thought about the specific parts of armor and how I could incorporate them into a dress. And so each piece is inspired by a part of a set of armor. For example, let's start with the gloves. The difficulty here was that I wanted to have it be continuous to the whole dress. So I didn't want to have anything that would visibly divide the gloves from the dress, and that's why I decided to make the glove part together with all of those little pieces for the fingers. And then I also made this little extra pattern piece that would extend the glove completely over the cuff of the dress, so that once everything is worn, it looks like the gloves are continuing into the dress. In comparison, our armor dress on the left plays with the same concept. They chose to make a glove, literally, and then added this extra piece that I made as well in form of something that is laced up with those grommets. And together this also creates this continuous look starting from the gloves into the whole dress. And now that we're already talked about the cuffs, we can directly talk about the sleeves as well. Because here is a part where I think this could show that it is a copy, because my concept with this design was that I wanted to have these armor parts that were very rigid, like the gloves for example, but I also wanted to add flowy parts that would still show that it is a dress. And so I decided to make those bigger sleeves that would have a lot of volume around the elbow and then are gathered into this small cuff so that the gloves could fit over it. And this is something that is not really specific to armor. That is something that is specific to dressmaking. And so if this dress was inspired just by armor and by making a dress out of armor, then this part wouldn't have looked like this, because there would not be a reason for that. I specifically made the sleeves like that because it was armor-unlike and not armor-like. My bodice is basically made from two parts, if you want to say it like that. I have this waist part that is made from all of those different pattern pieces that are layered on top of each other, and they end in this pointy bit at the front. On the other side we have a similar shape. It also ends in this pointy bit, and we also have like one of those, if you want to say it like that. But the overall concept is to look maybe a little bit more corset-like. So we have more vertical stripes here compared to the horizontal stripes. The top of my bodice was supposed to be like this chest plate, so I wanted to have as little darts in it as possible, but since I had to shape it somehow, I decided to make them curve a little bit from the sides so that it could resemble some kind of metalwork on actual armor. Compared to that, on this dress, we have some kind of bust darts, but otherwise I think this part looks mostly different. The main similarity is maybe that it both has the one part that is concentrated on the waist and then this one part that is concentrated at the top. Let's compare the bags. I think there's not really a lot left to say because most of it happens at the front. One thing maybe is that on both dresses the waist part continues into the back. So we have those stripes here and we have those stripes here. The biggest difference is probably that this dress is just closed with a zipper, while this dress is closed in a lot of different ways. And I think to probably show you, I'll get you a little bit closer. So for the closure of this dress, we just have the zipper I talked about earlier. And on my dress, it is a little bit more complicated to close, actually. First of all, we have hooks and thread bars so that we can clip the outside of the dress to the lacing panel. Then we have the lacing panel with like a million grommets. And then finally we have the skirt so that we can obviously also get into the bottom part of the dress. But this is mainly how this dress is closed compared to this one. Since we're now already talking about differences, I think we can just continue with that after we finished our little tour about the similarities. The biggest difference I think you can clearly see is in the structure, because while this dress is just one simple layer of stretch fabric, no lining, no anything, this dress has an internal corset sewn into it. It has some kind of petticoat. It has a padded layer around the hips. It is fully laced from top to bottom. It has lining inside, and so the complete internal structure of this dress is just way more sturdy than on this side, and you can clearly see that. Both mannequins have similar shape. They're both with roughly my measurements. You can clearly see how much the inside of this dress shapes it, and I think this makes it so difficult to compare both dresses, because even if this is a copy, it is just made so differently that of course the end result will never look like the original or the inspiration. And that's maybe one of the reasons why it's so hard for me to say it is a copy. It looks so far off. On a positive note, you get exactly what you ordered, because the pictures on the website where you can order the dress are original product pictures showing exactly this dress on a model in different angles. So if you see the pictures online and then somehow decide you want that dress and go ahead and order it, then this is what you get. So even if it could be a copy, it does not really need to be a scam. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. The second time I found out about a copy of my dresses, it was immediately clear that it was a copy, because they also used my pictures to advertise it. The dress they chose to sell was a copy of my Rose of Time dress that I made 2 years ago. It was made from layers of silk chiffon over a delicate tulle corset and a big tulle petticoat, and it took me a long time to make. Including shipping, it costs $53.62, which wouldn't even cover the costs for the tulle. To show you exactly how much of the dress this amount of money would cover, I prepared exactly that. This is around 11 meters of tulle, and this would probably be half the petticoat, maybe. And that's roughly the amount of material I could buy for the same price they were selling my whole dress for. We went ahead and ordered this dress as well. Unfortunately, it turned out to be not a bad copy, but a complete scam. So sadly, I can't show you the dress today. But thinking about the pay that the person that would have ended up sewing that dress would have gotten, it may have been for the best that nobody got exploited for my dress. I'm currently editing this video and I have a little update, if you want to call it that. Because all the dresses in this video I only knew of because someone else made me aware of them, and I've never checked myself if there's anything else online. And now I think I shouldn't have, because it's really bad. Basically every dress I put into this Google image search turns up on one of those websites, and I even found one dress on eBay. There was also a similar number of websites that were taken down already, which is a shame because I would have loved to get this jacket from AliExpress. So the problem is definitely bigger than the 3 cases I was aware of. I'm really speechless, but also not surprised somehow, and I just hope that no one got scammed with pictures of my dresses. But then again, if you see a dress like this for under $200, I can guarantee you that you won't get this dress. So please just think before you order something. Okay, so let's continue. But getting back to this dress, I think the situation is not quite as clear. If it's a copy, then I think I'm flattered. Because it clearly shows that making the dresses I make is not easy. In the video where I made the armor dress, I showed you how many test pieces and prototypes it took for me to get to this point. And this is an amount of work that would never be profitable for a fast fashion or costume brand. I mean, this dress costed 53 euros, which didn't even cover the cost of the fashion fabric of this, not even remotely. You can clearly see where they had to take shortcuts. And looking at my own work, I realized that those were the places where I really had to put in the most work. Figuring out the width of a sleeve and gathering it into a cuff doesn't take long. But for example, the pleats around the shoulder took me a literal day to make, and they just skipped that part. I drafted individual pattern pieces for each part of the finger. I spent days creating mock-ups. I think this is the 4th pair of gloves that I created until I was happy with it. I even tested the gloves to make sure that they would hold up more than just taking pictures in it. And of course they didn't have the time for that, so they just made this. So looking at all of that, it definitely would make sense that this dress is a copy of my armor dress, but like with a lot less of everything. Time, budget, patience. For me, it was definitely fun to compare because I could dive back into this project and really see how much work I put into it and how much thought and maybe also how much skill, because it really took a lot of brain work to get to a silhouette like this. And I think having this one next to it, which is, even if it's not a copy, clearly born from the same inspiration, and just seeing what I can achieve compared to a company that really confidently sells their costumes, I'm just really proud of myself. So what do you think? Do you think this is a copy of my work? Do you think I'm overreacting, or do you see any similarities at all? I would really like to know what you think, because I think art is something very subjective, and I think being in your own head about your own designs can definitely change how you view the work of others. So I'm just really curious what an outsider would think. So now we had a dress that was very clearly a copy or a scam, and then one where it was a little bit more difficult to determine. And now as a final dress, I've got something that is pretty much in between. Definitely a clear copy of a dress of mine, but they made sure not to advertise it with my pictures, for example. And some of you may already know where this is from. A friend ordered it for me. It costs $33, which covers maybe 2 to 3 meters of the fabric I used and nothing else. So let's see if the dress again reflects that price. After seeing that and also the pictures from the website, a few of you maybe already know which kind of dress this is a copy from. It is the Starry night dress that I made ages ago, I feel like. I think it is a very clear copy of that dress, but first of all, before we compare it, let's have a look at this one. So we have some kind of velvet. It really feels bad. I don't want to touch it. It's 100% polyester, so no surprises there. We have an invisible zipper in the back, so that's that. We have some kind of lining on the inside, so it is finished in a different fabric. The sleeves don't have any lining. It's just the bodice that has the lining and the skirt, so it looks like that. And we have lots of those plastic pearls, I would say, added to the dress, on the cuffs, and also in the front. A lot of them. Looking at the way it's finished, like the skirt, for example, is just raw. It's overlocked, but it's not turned or something. It's just like the edge, nothing else. And otherwise, there's not really a lot to mention other than it really is bad to touch. Of course, we have a few threads left and parts where the overlock didn't really catch the fabric like we've seen before. I said it had lining, and it has, like it is 2 fabrics, one inside, one outside, but still they added the lining and then they added the zipper on top of it. I guess it's like lost potential here, but that's probably what you get for $33. It's just a very cheap dress and it also looks like that. But now let me show you the comparison to my design. I don't think I have to say anything about that, but let's talk about it. So the inspiration for the Starry night dress was turning the night sky into some kind of cloth. And I made the bodice in some kind of shape that it sits very high at the front, but very low in the back. And I decided to add some kind of pearls to the place where the skirt goes into the bodice, and then they trickle down the dress like stars falling from the sky basically. And I added those pearls to the cuffs as well, so that this line somehow continues. The dress has a sweetheart neckline. It has a A-line skirt. It's not too wide. The original is T-length, so it's not floor length, and it has a very low back. I'll show you the back in a minute. And here we have the Shein dress, and here we see similarities. And now that we're a little bit experienced in comparing dresses, here again I noticed something that I noticed in the last dress, which was taking shortcuts whenever something gets a little bit difficult. And the most obvious thing I noticed is that the neckline isn't as refined as on my dress. And I think getting a sweetheart neckline to sit like that is really difficult. Takes a lot of pattern drafting, reinforcing, and careful sewing, and I don't think they had time for that, sadly. So they opted for some kind of V-neck. They also opted out of all of the seams I added to the bodice, either because you can't really see them on the product pictures I post, so maybe they didn't know they were there, or they simply didn't have the time for that, which is fair because this again took me a lot of pattern drafting and fitting. Other than that, the dresses look very similar from the front. It is a simple design if you take away the things pattern-wise, and so I think it's a simple design to copy, which we can all agree on, they obviously did. I used a cotton velvet. It is a very heavy velvet, and compared, this is like a poly velvet that really feels atrocious. Also, the skirt is made from a lot of different panels to achieve a fitting shape around the hip while still starting pretty high. And they decided against it. They just used pleats until here and then they just fall open. This is probably like a lot easier to sew and faster. So that's the front. And another thing you can see on this dress that you could see on the dress before is the construction and how much of a body it gives the dress, because this is a heavy velvet that in itself has a lot of structure. But I added the lining, I reinforced it from the inside, and this gives the whole dress a lot more stability than the stretch poly velvet than we have on the other side. It is lined compared to the dress that we had before, but the lining is also a stretch fabric, so it doesn't give any structure to the dress. But now let's talk about the back, because this is my favorite about this one, because it just doesn't have one. And I think this feels like a giveaway that they just had a picture from the front of my dress and went with that and completely forgot about the back, or didn't care about the back because they also only advertised it from the front. And it's so funny because it would make total sense to continue this towards the back. But they didn't, even if they wouldn't choose to do the lower back, which I understand because, again, this took a lot of pattern drafting. Why not continue the pearls? They also don't have any seams in the skirt in the back, so it's just two panels, and you can clearly see how it's not enough fabric and not enough shape, even though it is stretch. Yeah, well, I think that's already it with the back, surprisingly. But overall, I think with this you can clearly see how I put thought into my dress and took care about all of the steps. Not only did I use different sizes of pearls, I also tried to have them organically trickle down towards the bottom, while here we have probably more pearls than on my dress, which is kind of impressive. But we have them splattered onto the dress without really a thought. And I think this clearly shows that it's just a copy of the dress without having a concept in mind and just trying to mimic it without really making sense of it. And this is honestly what was most fun about all of this dress for me, to see how clearly they just didn't think about it while doing it. But now that we have compared all of the dresses today, what can we take away from that? Well, I honestly don't know, because for me, like I said earlier, this whole process was even flattering it clearly showed how much passion and time and work and just dedication goes into my projects, which is something I'm really proud of. And so having another dress that is a similar concept or even the same design, pointing that out for me is, for me, nothing bad. The person that buys the dress from Shein would probably not spend the amount of money that it would cost to buy the dress from me. So I don't really have any financial losses with those dresses in particular. But I also know that this is something a lot of artists and especially smaller businesses struggle with, that bigger companies, especially like Shein or something similar, steal their concepts and then sell it for a price they would never be able to make it. And that is a big problem that we have to take into consideration when we are drawing our conclusion on this. Because even though in my case I'm not mad and it's not a problem, doesn't mean that the overall concept isn't really bad for the art community, for creative people that are putting their heart and souls into their products and that are scammed by big companies that can just afford to copy them. So I hope that this video helps a little bit to spread awareness about that topic, and that even though we had fun along the ride, we also learned that if a dress costs 50 euros, $50, $60, then you probably won't get a well-constructed, high-quality product, if you even get one. So if you can afford it, and if you're in a position where you need a cool dress, then maybe go look for a small business. They are certainly very happy to have you as a customer. And this not only probably makes their day, but it's maybe also a small step that helps against those big companies. Other than that, I don't think I have anything more to add. It was a little different to my usual videos, and I hope you still enjoyed watching it and following along. I promise the next video will again be of me making a dress, and who knows, maybe one day you will find that exact dress on a mysterious website where you can buy it for $50.